Welcome to part 2 of my mini-series on how to service the KLR650. In this part we're going to be replacing spark plug. So I've been informed that this is the correct spark plug and it's a DPR8EA-9, so I hope so because that's the only one I've got. To do the job we're going to need an 8mm socket, 10mm socket, some nose pliers, possibly a Phillips head screwdriver, and then most importantly an 18mm spark plug remover. Now it's not your typical size that you'll find in most of the toolkits, which is 16 or 21mm, so it's an 18mm, and the sidewalls need to be pretty thin to get down in there as well, so make sure you've got one of these, otherwise you're going to take all the tank off for nothing. Let's get started. Now first off I'm going to advise you to take off the right hand panel. Now the spark plug is actually on this side of the engine, so it's just much easier if you take this off. We can actually leave the one on the other side. To do this we get our 8mm, probably the trickiest one to find is tucked up just behind the indicator there. So again, another 8mm. And lastly, the Phillips screwdriver just found on top there. Now be careful, there is actually a spacer in between the panel and the fairing, just be sure to catch that at the same time. So that's what that looks like there. So it just goes between the two panels. Now the last thing holding this on is just a popper just at the bottom there. So with that all off, pull the panel off, there you go. Right, now we need to remove our seat by using our 10mm and 8mm spanner. First off, use the 8mm. And again, just a popper at the bottom, rotate it off. Back with your 10mm spanner, or socket set I should say. Take this one all the way out. Now repeat for the other side, 8mm first. Rotate that off, change over to 10mm, take the bolt fully out, then we're going to rotate the seat. Like so. Just remember there's a clip to the front like that, and one on the petrol tank, and of course our two fixing points at the back. Right, now we're going to turn the filter off. Then there's two pipes we're going to disconnect. This is where we need our nose pliers. Hopefully you guys don't have these engine bars on, it makes things quite difficult. Pull that straight off. And then there's a vacuum pipe just at the back there, do the same to that as well. Don't be too concerned if a little bit of fuel comes out. Right, with both pipes off we should be ready to go. We now need to undo the two 10mm tank bolts and remove the breather pipe. Unlike on the other side, on this side we only need to undo this one 8mm bolt and this one number 2 Phillips head bolt. Okay, now to actually take the tank off, make sure it's unclipped to the bottom, hand under the back, hand under the front, gently rotate it out. Right guys, I'm going to stop you there. As I mentioned earlier, the spark plug on this bike is an 18mm, not the typical 16 and 21. And it's not just an 18mm, it needs a skinny socket 18mm. So there's my tool from earlier. After getting a bit handy with the angle grinder, that's how it looks. Now, as a backup, I've also had a friend turn a socket down on a lathe, if you can see that. So I've learned the hard way. You either need to grind a socket down, buy the special tool. I couldn't find one anywhere in Sydney at such short notice. Or if you've got a friend with a lathe, turn one down. Righty guys, with the tank off and looking straight down on the top of the engine, you can see your HT lead coming from your coil there. On the end is the spark plug socket. So just take the rubber off, check that the spring clip is inside, check the rubber's in good condition. If not, you may want to also change your spark plug boot. Tuck that up out the way. Now use this time to either get compressed air or a vacuum cleaner and try and suck out any debris that's fell around the spark plug. That's so that when you remove the spark plug, that doesn't go back down inside the engine. Okay, so when you're happy that you've cleaned everything out, I just use a high power vacuum cleaner, but if you had compressed air, that's probably a better way to do it. Now using our special ground down tool, or in fact if you have the correct tool, start to get the spark plug undone and take it all the way out. There you go, that's your spark plug. So it doesn't look in too bad a condition, doesn't look like it's been off in quite some time. But certainly not the worst one I've seen. Tiny bit of carbon build-up, that's to be expected. Okay, so compare your old plug with your new one. That's certainly the right number written on the side. Let's get it out. Move the cardboard tube. Just check the numbers. DPR8EA-9. All looks correct to me. Let's put the new plug in. Okay, so I've just adjusted the spark gap. Now the manual says 0.8 to 0.9 of a millimetre. I went for 0.9. So we're now going to put the new plug straight in there. I always like to start it off with my fingers first. Get it in as far as you can with your fingers. And get your new tool. Pull that straight off. Then get your cap straight away back down, making sure it's all the way to the bottom. Okay, when you're happy your spark plug's in nice and tight and your HT lead is back on and again nice and tight, just check, make sure you've got all these rubbers, and these two rubbers are on here. Also check that nothing's going to snag on the tank when we put it back on. Now, I hope you didn't have your tank as full as mine because it's pretty heavy, but let's get the tank back on now. So we're just going to come over, get forward as far as you can, locate the two rubbers and then push the tank forward to make sure we can get our two 10mm bolts in. Get a pipe, send it through the middle. Some of the models actually have two of these, this one's only got the one. Just get that on as far as you can. Okay, I'm now going to go ahead and put this panel back on. Okay, now we've got the tank back on, it's time to get our hoses on, so I'm going to start with the back one first, which is probably the trickiest. Yep, I've managed to get that over. Now time for the front one. All the way up as high as you can. Again, try with a spring clip with your fingers if you can. And if you can't, get your nose pliers. Here we go. While we're over this side, I'm just going to put this panel back on. Okay, we're now ready to get our seat back on. Remember to angle it at the front, making sure all of the hooks line up. And now to put on the finishing panels. And repeat on the other side. If you found that video helpful, please check out my other videos on the KLR650 or indeed any of my other videos I've got on my channel. Please give me the thumbs up and subscribe.